Data from a new survey, Payment Preferences in Jamaica, shows that cash remains deeply embedded in how Jamaicans transact, despite ongoing efforts to move toward a cashless society. CEO of Branch with 2 C's, Consulting and Outsourcing, Marcus Brodba, who commissioned the survey, joins us to break down the key findings.
Marcus just can't spell, by the way, with 2 C. Good morning, welcome, brother.
Good morning, thanks.
Good
morning. Why you thought we needed the survey?
All right, well, Branch, we consider ourselves cash management experts. So we are in the payment space and we have a unique relationship with Atlas Group. So anytime you see what we love to call in Jamaica, the bring struck with the Atlas sign, we are the technology that powers Atlas to provide ABM service management, cash in transit, deposit processing island-wide. Mm-hmm. And being a significant player in the space, I realized that we didn't have this kind of data. So most of the payments dialogue in Jamaica is opinionated and polarizing. You know, cash is king or cash will soon be obsolete. And being in the space, providing consultancy and outsourcing, how do we give suggestions to our clients if we don't understand the space well enough? And I realize in Jamaica we do have this data. So most of the data that is there is about what happens at a point of sale in more established entities or merchants. But you find that it doesn't capture the more informal sector where most of the cash circulates.
Absolutely.
In the market, corner shops. Mm-hmm. How does that segment of the demographic interact with cash? So we did this to inform ourselves, inform our clients, and to kind of spark dialogue in the payments arena, which is a space I think it doesn't have enough dialogue at this point.
Did it surprise you, the finding that cash is still king?
No, it didn't surprise me that cash is still king. What did surprise me and what came out in the survey was how the younger demographic still interacts with payments. So as you expected, the older demographic, above 60, above 55, is mostly all cash. They don't really use other payment methods. Debit card would be second. In other nations, developed countries, you see where the younger generation is kind of moving away from cash slowly to more digital electronic means. But what we found is that while the younger generation in Jamaica is adopting electronic digital payment methods, the cash is still holding on to the cash.
Why would we, and I say we personally, deliberately, because I'm an older Jamaican, why you think we want cash all the while? It's just because we don't understand the internet system and how you go through payment by your phone, and is that the reason?
I think that is definitely an influencing factor. Comfort with the technology. What I will say is that if you look at countries with similar socio-economic situations and payment options, you can still get a very vast difference in how they interact with payments, because a large influencing factor with payment methods is culture, right? It's definitely culture. Yeah. We like to pay with what we like to pay with for whatever reason, right? So for even the younger generation, the older generation, I believe that in Jamaica there is a culture, within the culture, somewhat of a lack of trust of electronic and digital means of payment.
I was going to say reliability, because, let's put the elephant in the room.
Right.
A lot of people say, listen, I've tried it, but when month end come, I can't access what I need to access. This is not working. I go on there, say the cash machine is not working today. Is that one of the mitigating factors? People have not yet come to believe we can rely on it. And
coming out of the survey, that was one of the major factors. And reliability does inform your trust, because if something is not reliable based on your experience, you won't trust it. So out of the survey, it showed that about 32% of respondents, only 32% of respondents expected the point of sale to work almost all the time. So that means 68% of us expect to have a failed transaction, right? Yeah. And again, that speaks to our infrastructure. Electronic means of payments, unlike cash, are dependent on technology. It's dependent on power, it's dependent on connectivity. And those are two things that as a country, we're not at first world standards as yet to have that reliability. So we do experience more failed transactions because of technical issues than we should. I think Hurricane Melissa was also brought that out for us as well. What happens when you have such a disaster and you lose power, you lose connectivity. Even in the eastern side of the island after Hurricane Melissa, there was serious connectivity issues. So even ATMs in the eastern side of the island were down. So those are two things that we need to look into as a country, all the stakeholders, how we get our infrastructure to a level that allows us to have more reliable digital payments so that we can build the trust that is keeping those, even those that want to move away from cash, they can't do it.
All right, so, yeah, and I hear, you know, you can't write a check soon, you probably don't have a branch of a bank to go into. I hear all of that, but at the end of the day, now that you have done the survey, you have decided to say what is a good thing, is not a good thing, more people need to go cashless, leave the old people alone with them cash. At the end of the day, what has come out of this survey?
All right, what I would say has come out of this survey, and the importance of this survey is where we are as a country. So if we need to know where we are before we can move forward. Being in the payment space, we have kind of moved away from saying cash is king or cash versus digital. The public wants choice and freedom of choice, right? And that is what is important. And what is important is that for all the players in the space, we are now focused on cash. Our job at branch is to make sure cash can circulate efficiently, securely, fast, and reliably.
I hear what you say, but then the branch going to say, no, use the ABM. Don't come in here. So when you say we should have a choice, and I agree with that, but you soon don't have a choice because you won't be able to write a check. You won't be able, don't?
No, I believe we will have a choice. We'll always have a choice. I would say in our payment space development or evolution, we're behind some of the first world countries.
Yes.
So digital payments has existed in European countries for almost 20 years, right? But yet the adoption is only at about 4% of transactions, right? So I don't think we're going to jump ahead of the curve and have that sort of situation here. But why is it you get that kind of pushback on cash? Because maybe some merchants, some entities might find it inefficient or inconvenient to manage, which is where we come in. We try to remove the headache of managing cash and allow it to circulate.
So the survey wasn't to say whether it's right or wrong. The survey was just to say,
to find out what
go on.
This is what is happening for all the players in the space. And to give some insights, spark discussion and dialogue as to maybe what we need to do to get your means of payment moving forward. Again, my business right now is cash, but I'm not anti-digital payments. I use all payment methods. But what is important for me is that all of them work.
Yeah, we have, I guess, a hybrid system right now. I was listening, and there are some places I know in Europe, they just don't accept cash. You know, you're going to some restaurants and they say, card only. Do you think that one of the things that we might do in order to kind of push it along is to say, for example, government transactions have to be done digital. If you're coming to pay your taxes, if you're coming to kind of force our hand a bit.
But in some European countries as well, there's strong legislation to enforce freedom of choice. Like ATM rules. And I would say even in Jamaica 2 years ago, the Bank of Jamaica instilled ABM rules, and ABM guidelines for the first time to protect that freedom of choice, to ensure that ABM's uptimes are at a minimum threshold to ensure that the public is not inconvenienced.
Yeah, I've found in recent times that the ATM is drama.
Well,
I said it on here, I think it was Monday. I went to 6 before one work. And 5 of them was the same bank before one work. And then when you go, like I'm in one bank and you use the ABM of another bank, you get charged more for, you know, but then if my bank now work, what am I to do?
You know, what I would say is that our country is very unique in a lot of ways. They say Pepsi is bigger than Coca-Cola, only in Jamaica, nowhere else in the world. We use a lot of notes per transaction in Jamaica. It's not just high cash, but the amount of notes that circulate. So our wear and tear on our ATMs is a lot more than other countries. So ATMs that are so reliable in other countries tend to come under the less reliable here because maybe the mileage that goes on an ATM in Jamaica after 2 years is equivalent to what would happen in another country after 8 years. So there needs to be more preventative maintenance. You have to kind of budget for more part replacements and that kind
And
of.
I accept that, but wouldn't the banks, just like how you did a survey, and we can tell you which is the biggest fast food place in the country, wouldn't the bank say, all right, there's a little ATM at RJR where 10,000 people use it every day. So that not if it up and running, wouldn't they?
No, but I mean, I would say they do make an effort to get that done. That is where Branch comes in the partnership with Atlas. We manage ABMs for a few banks, and I would say our uptime is very good. So I'm selling the service now. So our uptime is very good. I believe the last time I checked would be above 95%. So it comes in now with the banks and the service providers and how you go about managing and being proactive. Right? So we have tools that we use to do proactive management, monitoring of the network, so we know when replenishments are needed, AI forecasting, that kind of thing.
There's a lot more that you discovered in the survey. I just want to know, is it somewhere that we can access it?
Right, so you can download a digital copy from our website, which is branch.com, branch with 2 C's. You can go there and download a copy.
It's very useful. I was looking at some of the headings that we didn't have time to discuss. So I feel like everybody who interacts with clients and consumers, they should get a copy of it. Thank you. Thank you for doing it.
Thank you for having me.
As you said, Branch with 2 C's. I was telling Clive that there's this company that you can get a drink, and they said Mark with a C. And they put on the cup, Kark. Chief Executive Officer of Branch Consulting and Outsourcing, Marcus Bradba. What happens after the break?
We're going to be discussing what's on the lineup for Child Month. Starts tomorrow.
Yep, soon come.